I'm Sharon and I'm one of the national teachers, and I'm also area demonstrator for 3 counties in South Wales. And in the workroom today I have some sunflowers that I'll go and spare. So this was my sort of inspiration for the design that I'm going to do today. You don't need a huge amount of flowers for this. I know we're all possibly struggling to get out and about. Now we are in the lockdown at the moment, so you remember, because I've got this gorgeous haircut going on, and I've also damaged my glasses. So I've only got one arm on my glasses, which isn't helping me see things that are close up. But if you have been flower arranging for a long time, you will remember that back in the 80s, and that's when I started to become a florist, that's when I did my training in the late 80s, we used to use tall circular frames made for any type of flower arranging really, and there was a little container on the top, a metal stand at the top to hold your floral foam, and quite often we would do a crescent shape on the top and an inverted crescent shape on the bottom. And when I was training to be a florist, that was a big part of my job. We made them on the weekend for weddings. They would sit in church windows, and then in between the wedding finishing and the photos being taken of the bride and groom and the rest of the party, we would sneak into the back of the church, remove all the flower arrangements, put them back into the back of the van, and then we'd rush off to the reception to place them there so the bride and groom could make use of the flowers for the rest of the afternoon. And now that trend has sort of come back, and we have now in floristry in particular, we have these circular hoop sort of frames that brides are now using again on the centre of their tables. This is a 70cm one, and if you haven't got a frame like this at home, it's quite easy to use just your ordinary plastic hula hoop, and you can drill it into a wooden base, or you could use, if you wanted a smaller version, you could use an embroidery hoop. So there are other ways of being able to construct something like this. This is a purpose-built one. Goes out to lots of weddings in lots of different styles and lots of different colour combinations. And I've made this a little bit more rustic, using bits and pieces really that I found in the garden. So obviously a lot of us can't get out at the moment. And last week I cut down an ivy that was growing over a wall. It was getting a little bit unsightly, and I also took down a grapevine which wasn't looking particularly good and wasn't looking very well in the position that it was. So that's what I've used to create this horizontal section at the top. What I initially did, and if I had some brown spray paint to hand, I probably would have covered this with brown spray paint before I started. Just underneath here is a little bit of a batten, and I've drilled 2 holes on the end of it and attached it to the circular frame. Again, if I had some spray paint, I would have covered this hoop frame at the back there, but for now you'll have to put up with seeing the silver shape underneath. And then I've just built up layers on top of ivy root. So this is the grapevine on the end here. So little bits of the grapevine, little bits of ivy that was climbing up the wall. And I've just layered it together so we get this nice sort of horizontal bar. And rather than going sort of straight across the middle and cutting the design very much in 2, I've gone almost a third down from the top, leaving 2/3 of space underneath. Then if I choose to put any trailing material, you would really be able to appreciate any ivy or pilea or anything that we might cascade there down over the front. Some trailing amaranthus would be wonderful, if only I had it. And after I've created the frame and made sure it's nice and secure, I've added in a selection, not a huge amount of test tubes. So we've got some lime green, and the lime green are going to help give me a colour link between these lovely lime green chrysanths that I've got. And then I've got a clear, smaller test tube as well. And I've already filled them with water, because you don't want me to attempt to fill them with water when I can't see what I'm doing, because my glasses are broken. And I've tried to create this sort of golden triangle effect with the test tubes, rather than doing the very traditional spacing where we would maybe go 1/3 and 2/3, or maybe we would go straight down the middle. So if you can imagine a triangle between 3 green test tubes, we have that supposedly golden ratio and that golden triangle. which is more effective in more contemporary style designs. So the construction part is probably the part that takes the longest. We've had to ensure that it's nice and secure and nothing's going to fall off. This test tube is a little bit full of water, so we might have a little bit of overspill, but who minds, who cares? And it's something that if you're out for a walk, or you've got little bits and pieces in your shed or your garage, you might be able to construct something quite similar. It doesn't have to be circular. Maybe if you've got a picture frame, you could mount a picture frame onto a base, and you could do the same sort of style using little bits of wood. Could be driftwood, bamboo possibly. You could use wool or material to cover the outside. Doesn't have to be this rustic look that I'm going for today. So we'll just spin that round. Now I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do this without putting my glasses on, because it's going to be a little bit hysterical if they fall off. So we've got lovely sunflowers, and a big head also repeats the shape of the frame, so we're having repetition, which is one of the principles and elements of design. The foliage isn't too nice looking on there, so we'll get rid of the foliage, and just to place that into the test tube using the frame to give us a little bit of support. Now, we'll do that a little bit shorter, I think. Now, when you're using the test tubes, you have to be quite careful that the test tube doesn't do what it's doing there now and tipping forward. So what I'm going to have to do with that one is just use a little bit of the framework behind to hold that sunflower in place. So if you can see that now, because the framework is sort of holding that sunflower, it's not going to cause the test tube to pull forward. And then we've got another nice size sunflower. These are really going to cheer anybody up. I think they're just wonderful at the moment. And we're just going to pop that in there. Try and have the heads facing at slightly different angles, so that you've got something a little bit of different to see, and the design doesn't appear to be too flat. And that one doesn't want to sit where I want him to go. Let's try a different. Ideally, it would be nice if we had one that was facing forward slightly, but we have to work with the materials that we've got. So we'll pop that in there. That's better. Now what was happening is they were very much on the same level, the same plane, so they were sort of a little bit like two eyes staring at you. So by changing the head, we've now got something that's got a little bit more height to it. They're quite well secure and they're quite well balanced. And then I think we'll cut this possibly a little bit, or we'll try him as he is first, see if the framework is going to support it. Just got to feed it in really in between the vine without trying to damage the flower head too much. And there we are. So we've got this visually sort of pleasing triangle between those placements. Now I have some lovely little houseplants that I sell in the shop, and this one, isn't it gorgeous? This is Pilea, sorry, that's not a Pilea, it's a Peperomia. This is Peperomia Raindrop, and if you'd have been in Wales a few nights ago, we had rain literally this size, and so I keep that along with a few other little houseplants, so that if I need a nice shiny leaf, these are fantastic to use in flower arranging. And because it's quite a rustic design and everything has that sort of very rough appearance, these are now going to look gorgeous as a lovely contrast against the roughness of the wood and the bark and what have you. Just slide that one in there. Now they're almost heart-shaped. That one hopefully will sit in there very nicely. And at the end, if you feel that the stem on any of the flowers or the foliage is a little bit short, you can always top up the test tubes of water. And you can see that I've used the two leaves in slightly different angles, again, so that it doesn't create a very visually heavy pattern and it's not repeated and makes the design look a little bit stiff. And then I've got quite a nice size one to pop over this side, and I think we'll put this towards the back this time, so we have a different shape. Now when you can't see, it's a little bit difficult to get it in the test tube. But there we are, how's that? So that lovely flat, glossy appearance contrasts beautifully against that very rustic wood. It's also a completely different shape alongside the sunflower. So contrasts are always sort of very important. Now, quite often in flower arranging, we encourage you to bring flowers to the back to aid balance and to finish the design off neatly. But I'm not going to be doing it with this design because I like the focus of sort of flowers to be at the front. Now, just to add a little bit of softness into the design, I have panicum fountain. So this is fountain grass. The variety is panicum. This will grow in the garden. It's a brilliant one to grow in the garden. So if you're looking for something that would sort of self-seed in the garden, this is a great one to have. So that's panicum fountain. And again, it's another contrast, another shape. And it brings a nice, soft, light airiness to the design. The wood is visually quite heavy, quite dominant. So this will bring in a nice, soft touch. So how's that so far? We've got that lovely soft wispiness now of the grass. And then to link the colour with the test tubes, I'm now going to add just a few of the little croissants. Now, most people sort of generalise these as being Kermit or possibly Feeling Green. This one is actually called Country. And I'm going to cut them down so that we get sort of 2 sections from each piece. So a very good tip to get your flowers to go that little bit further. And again, weave in through the framework a little bit to get them into the test tubes. So how's that so far? Now I also have these little chilies in the shop for sale. These are in for Father's Day. And it's almost black. And I thought it would give a lovely colour match, so we get some repetition with the frame and with the inside of those lovely big sunflowers. So I'm going to cut these down small. Now these are ornamental, they're not edible, so if you're buying any of these in shops, please don't eat them. They're just a little decorative one to plant in the garden really. And that's just a wonderful shape. It's got that sort of linear shape to it. Nice little bit of a spike. So again, a complete contrast to the other shapes that we've got. So we've got lots of round shapes going on in here. Round with your little Santini chrysanthemum, and then rounds with the sunflower, rounds with the frame. So this, along with the grass, which is a little bit more pointy, introduces another shape. So if I spin that round, what do you think of that? So I'm hoping that that's something maybe you'd like to have a little go at home. It's quite easy to do, it's not too taxing. So thank you for watching. I'm sure there'll be more videos along on the NAFAS channel soon. Enjoy flower arranging and enjoy wonderful flowers. Bye for now.